Today is January 30th, 2026, and welcome to the 473rd episode of the So Video Games podcast. Here on the show, I talk about any game at all, including new stuff, old stuff, and anything in between. My name is Brad Galloway. I'm the one-man host of the show, and I'm also the editor of GameCritics.com, a website that uses the full range of review scores from 0 to 10 and offers full accessibility information on every review that we publish. Hello! Thank you all for joining me today. This podcast is coming out a little bit earlier than we normally publish, and there is a good reason for that. Instead of the usual stuff we're going to do, we usually cover a slew of games, some news and tidbits, movies and TV, such and such. Instead of all that, we're going to do something different, something we don't do very often here at So Video Games, which is an interview. Those are about as rare as a leprechaun riding a unicorn around these parts. But today I think it was worth it. It was worth breaking form, going out of our way, doing something special, because Cairn has just released, I think less than 24 hours ago. Cairn is the third-person mountain climbing, not really a simulator, but action game with a lot more to it than just that. We got a peek at this with a demo that hit PS5 a while ago. I know many people who listen to this show were excited about it. I was excited about it and have been eagerly awaiting. Full disclosure, I did get a review code from the publisher, and I was in the pre-release review period. I did finish the game, put about 15 hours into it. I fell roughly 200 times. And I will have my full review and thoughts after this next segment. So you can look forward to my review at the end of the show. But before we get to that interview, I was so fortunate and grateful to have Emeric Thoa, the creative director of The Game Bakers, join me here on the podcast for a quick chat. He was 9 hours ahead. He was podcasting from the future in France. So I'm very grateful he took the time to sit down with me. I'm sure there's a lot going on. I'm sure it's a very busy time for The Game Bakers right now. But I was very excited. I don't do interviews very often. You know that. I don't do interviews very often. But this game really hit me pretty big time. I think it's a special achievement. I think it's a special game. And I think it was worth me breaking form and doing something a little different and stepping out of my comfort zone a little bit. Because interviews are not always my favorite thing. I do get a little bit nervous. But this was a good chat. Emeric was very gracious and a good guy to talk to. And without further ado, let's pivot to that interview. So take it away, Brad. All right, Emeric, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your time. Before we get started into the game itself, would you mind telling me a little bit about yourself and about the studio?
Sure. First, I'm very glad to be here. So I'm Emeric Thoa. I'm the co-founder of The Game Bakers, an indie studio that was created 15 years ago with my partner Audrey. We started the studio in 2010, and we released games like Fury or Haven, and now we just launched Cairn.
You also had a Squids game in there too, didn't you?
Yes. It's my first baby, actually. I'm very fond of that game. It's a tactical RPG with touch controls that you can play either on mobile, on iOS, and on Switch as well, and also on Steam. And it was an impressive mobile game for 2011. And I still love it deeply because it's really crafted with a lot of love and soul. So yeah, it's our first game. And I didn't say, but in the studio, my role, except from for creating the studio with Audrey, is being like a game director and producer.
Excellent. And just so you know, I actually played that Squids game when it came out, and I finished that Squids game, and I thought it was quite good. I really liked it quite a bit.
Cool. That's always a pleasure to meet a Squid player.
Absolutely, yes. Very fun. Okay, so I guess, Cairn is out now. It's only come out, I believe, yesterday. So a lot of people are getting into it today for the first time. I think a lot of people are just hitting the slopes of Mount Cami initially. But for people who maybe haven't tried it yet, how would you describe the game yourself in your own words?
So Cairn is a survival climber. It's an adventure game where you play very great alpinist who is trying an ascent that nobody has ever managed to do. You try to reach Mount Cami's summit, and it's a mountain that nobody ever climbed before. And so it's an adventure game with survival elements, and at the core of the game experience, climbing. And we are trying to approach climbing with a completely new way in gameplay.
Excellent, excellent. Just so you know, I was in the pre-release testing period. I got to play the game. My review will be coming out after this podcast is up. We also have another person. So I'm doing the podcast review. I have another person at my website who's doing the written review. So we'll have 2 reviews going up of it as well. And I did complete the game all the way, just so you know. So it took me about 15 hours, give or take.
Cool.
Fell about 200 times, give or take. So, so let me ask, how did you... Obviously, like, how did you come up with the concept? I mean, are you a climber yourself? Are there people on the team that climb? Or were you influenced by something specifically?
So I am not a climber. I actually climbed a little to know the feeling and to really get into my bones and fingers what it is to climb. But it's terribly painful and difficult and frustrating. So I will only say that I'm fascinated by climbers. And that's what started everything. I was really fascinated by climbing stories. I think one of the stories that really touched me and inspired Cairn was the manga from Jiro Taniguchi, The Summits of the God, which is incredible read. I recommend it deeply. And then after we made Fury and Haven, basically these 2 games that are very different. Fury is like a post-rush, super fast-paced action game, and Haven is a story-driven RPG with a love story at its center. But both games have freedom as a theme. So Fury is about living free. Haven is about free to love who you want. And we wanted to make it a trilogy and to explore freedom with another angle. And we thought, okay, what's the absolute search for freedom? And that's how alpinism came. And we wanted to approach that. And then in gameplay and game design, it's super exciting to just think of a new way to climb in a video game.
Interesting. I was just kind of wondering, hearing you talk about freedom and alpinism things, I kind of wonder, you're obviously French. Do you feel like this is a very French game? Do you feel like there's a lot of French influence? I'm in America right now, unfortunately. And I just kind of wondered, how do you see that? Do you feel like there's some kind of element that is coming into the game from France that maybe would be different if you're from a different country?
It's not designed to be French, but for the first time we worked with French comic artists. And it's possible that it increases even more the Frenchness of the thing. But I think it's quite universal, the search for freedom, alpinism. There are great alpinists from everywhere in the world. It's quite strongly influenced by Himalayan stories as well. So I think what's the most... Also, I am a very, very Japan-inspired game designer. So it does have a bit of everything between, of course, my Occidental culture and also the Japanese influence, and then Himalayan climbing stories. It's a bit from everywhere, probably.
Okay. I'm sorry, that was a kind of a random question, but good answer, good answer. So getting back to the mechanics, you said you climbed a little bit to kind of just get the feel of it. I've done a little bit of rock climbing too. I'm not good at it. I'm not an expert at all, but I've had a little bit under my belt. And I wonder, how much did your team have to do? Did you all drive out to, the Alps one day and just go out on the hills for a while, or like were you in a gym, or like what was the process like? Did you do some what kind of mechanics did you guys physically have to do to understand it, or how was that process like?
We did that. We gathered the team, because Game Bakers is a remote studio. We are all working from home.
Okay.
And the team is everywhere, a little bit in France, but we also have people in Northern Europe or in Canada. So we did gather everybody to go in the Alps and to climb, to go to the top of the Mont Blanc and experience what it is to have headaches because of the altitude. So we did that. We also worked with professionals because at the time we were all either completely neophytes in climbing or beginners. Some people in the team were beginners. And so we worked with professional guides and experienced climbers to really get what it is. And we also had the opportunity to work with Elisabeth Revol, who is a very well-known French climber who did several ascents to peaks over 8,000 meters on difficult paths, and had a very memorable experience when she lost her partner during one of these ascents. So he didn't come back. So this was very inspiring to what we wanted to build. So especially to answer the question, why do you climb? Why do you go back after living such a terrible experience? What is driving you? So we did that. And then after that, I would say a third of the team started climbing regularly, especially the level design team. So it's super cool that these guys, especially these guys, started climbing because it's probably the part of the game where this experience is the most useful, to know what is a good route or not, and how to build a good wall.
I wonder, after the game is completed, did you have any of the professional climbers try the game themselves? Like, I don't know if they actually play games, but after you took the feedback in and after you went on these hikes, did you say, what do you think of this? Like, did any of them try it?
Yeah. Of course, we did that. Everybody told us it's the closest thing I ever played that makes me feel the same emotions. So that was very reassuring, because that's pretty much. Cairn is not a sports simulation; it's an adventure game, but within that, we wanted to capture the emotions that are interesting in climbing, which are mostly the tension, the stress, sometimes the frustration, but also the relief and also the satisfaction when eventually you manage to climb the wall. So all these we wanted to get, and apparently they said checked.
Interesting. We'll get to some of that a little bit later in the interview, but I can say for sure you're definitely very successful with that. Definitely. One question I had from one of the other people at my website was asking, with the limb-based controls, you control each limb at a time individually. Did you find that it was difficult to do that system and also keep it very serious and straightforward? The example he gives is because often when you do something like this, it's like Octodad, where you're waving all around, or usually it's like, friend games or multiplayer. It's like really goofy. I think with that type of limb control, it lends itself to comedy, perhaps. Did you struggle to make it seem not goofy and not funny, or how was that process?
I think it's difficult because a part of the game can be considered goofy because of that, but if you climb in a way that you don't want to fall, you're probably not going to look too goofy. You're going to look pretty much realistic. And also, I looked tons of climbing videos, and these guys are very flexible, and they do crazy stuff that you can't believe until you see them. So sometimes I had people saying, "Oh, that's not realistic," and then I show a picture of an actual climber doing the same thing. So I think we tried to find a good spot of where it is fun to play and not too goofy, but we also could have made it 100% realistic. And we decided to be a little more open with the angles your knees or elbows can go to, just because it was more less frustrating. It was really the goal was to capture the freedom in the gameplay, so you feel free to climb anywhere, to try anything, and after that, if you fall, you feel responsible for your fall. So we didn't want to restrict too much, and we were ready to sacrifice a little bit of realism for that.
So that kind of leads me into the difficulty. I think you probably would admit it's a pretty difficult game. I think most people I've talked to feel like it's very difficult compared to most games that we play. So there are a couple of concessions in there. There's like the time rewind, and you can change the difficulty a little bit. There's also like the grip visual indicator. I use both of those, the time rewind and the visual indicator. I felt like those were very necessary and useful because with video games, we're used to having a meter and we see exactly how much we have in terms of stamina. And, we have a lot of like feedback. And I wonder, I know that the stamina thing is something that's very divisive right now. I finished it, so I know what that's like. I've talked to other people, some people who think it's great, some people who have like, I hate this and I'm out and I'm done. But I think the stamina is maybe one of the biggest issues. Did you feel like the stamina system where it's at now, where you just kind of, there's no meter for it as far as I know. Like I checked and I'm like, I don't see anything on the screen, but maybe Ava, the main character, maybe her arm will shake or maybe she'll make a sound or something like that. Did you feel like that feedback was too opaque perhaps? Like you didn't give people enough? Or how did you decide on that specific aspect of feedback? Because I think it's very central to the entire climbing experience. A lot of people I talked to were like, I don't know why I fell and I'm so mad that I fell and I thought I was okay, but I wasn't okay. And that part, is it intentionally difficult to reflect the reality of mountain climbing, or how did you find that sweet spot between enough information for the player and keeping it, I don't know, real or mysterious, I guess?
It's really, like Cairn is not a game that's designed to be for everybody. It's a game designed to be playable by anyone, but I mean, if you're not into this kind of experience, it's fine for me. It's not. It's designed to be memorable for some people. I'd rather have half the audience, but they are all in love with the game, than sell twice more, but they just, okay, that was fun. Now what do I play next? And they forget about it. I want people to never forget about Cairn. So to achieve that, I have to make strong choices. And I have to decide, okay, it's not going to be for everyone, but some people are going to feel better the character, to feel what is climbing, to feel the struggle and the satisfaction. And it's a bit the same when we made Fury. A lot of people said it's too difficult, but eventually people who love Fury now are loving it forever and they will never forget about it. So I think what I've observed is that the stamina is never a problem per se. It's that because the game is very new and there is nothing like it in the way you play it, and some people, especially sometimes the most surprising profiles, like super hardcore players, people who finished Elden Ring, all the Souls, who finished super hardcore games, they're gonna have an approach to this game that's too competitive or too fast-paced, and they're gonna fail, and they're not gonna reflect on what was wrong in their approach. And I've observed people who are super casual players going super carefully, checking their route, being safe with the use of pitons and everything, and succeed much more efficiently to climb. So I don't know, I've seen people finish it without any help, any assist in 8 hours, which for me was a surprise, because I thought it was more like 15 hours walkthrough for a first run. But apparently some people were able to do that, and yes, it's true, sometimes it was a challenge for some people. But I would say so is alpinism.
Fair, that's fair. So I guess.
But for instance, the visual display you use that shows if you get a good hold or not. This, we played with it for a while and we decided to remove it because if you want to play with it, it's fine. I think everybody's all the options that we offer, the rewind, we put it because we are fine for people to adjust the experience to a certain level. So it's completely fine. But it does remove a little bit of the uncertainty of climbing and the fact that you really have to be careful about your hands animation and where you put your feet and your hand and everything. So we thought it was more fun without it, but there are lots of options for everyone to enjoy it.
Good. I mean, I agree. I certainly enjoyed my time with it for sure, and I did have all the options, so I'm glad that those were there. To be honest with you, I'm not sure that I would have finished it if those options weren't there. I might not have finished it, but I'm glad that I did. So thank you, and thank you to the team for giving a wider array of options for people who can kind of maybe self-calibrate for whatever's right for them. We appreciate that very much. But along those same lines, I guess during the playtesting, I'd like to know, was there anything funny or wild or surprising that you found during playtesting? Like maybe you thought something was great and people hated it, or maybe something you thought was not good and people loved it. Anything that you learned that was really like a surprise to you, or something funny, unexpected?
Lots of things were funny because it's such a weird, unique game. So I just, out of the blue like that, I don't know if I remember something special, but we were for sure very surprised by what route players eventually found. Because we put every rock of the mountain by hand, one by one, every little crack and everything. So it took 4 years to make this mountain. And we have ideas where to go, and we build routes and cracks and visual lines in the mountain. But then when he did the playtest, there was always someone trying to go somewhere we didn't plan and try something we didn't plan for. So that was always funny to see that eventually this new way of climbing became like a tool or a musical instrument, and then people try playing with it. Even if there is a partition, they just don't care and play something different. So that's always fun to see.
Interesting. So obviously the game's only been out for a couple days. It's too soon to talk about this, but are you watching the feedback, or do you have metrics or something to see? Maybe there's one spot where people always fall, or maybe people always get stuck in this one spot. Are you going to be adjusting the mountain, maybe moving some of those rocks as the time goes on? Is that something you're thinking about now, or do you feel like it's pretty good where it's at?
Now, we're probably not going to touch the mountain unless there is a surprise, but it's not planned. And so far, the feedback has been really, really good. So adjusting the mountain would be potentially a bit unfair for those who try to speedrun or things like that. But in the future, I don't know, we might add new rocks to climb or something like that. It's just a bit too soon for us to say since the game has released since not even 24 hours now.
Yes.
But the metrics we have are saying lots of people love the game. It's like 93 positive reviews on Steam, and 7% are the usual little bugs of a launch. Even though there is not so much, it's difficult for such a game that is very systemic to cover everything, and also every PC setup, but we are improving that at the moment, and hopefully we will make more rocks to climb.
Well, thank you. Yes, I had my own share of struggles. So there's a few places where I'm like, this place needs some more rocks, but we can talk about that later. That's fine.
Yeah, there are lots of routes. So some routes are going to be a struggle for some people, and then just rappel down and try another route. But to be honest, of course, we designed difficulty peaks. So there is this big wall at one point.
Well, yes. Oh, yes.
It's a challenge. Let's be honest. It's a challenge. It's designed to be the absolute boss fight. So yes. There is no easy route on this one. There is crazy hard, and quite hard.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that wall because I know exactly the wall you're talking about. To me, there was like two quote unquote boss fights. It was the wall you mentioned, and then that little spire.
The needle, yeah,
the needle. I'm not going to say anything more than that. I don't want to spoil it. But I got to that. I'm like,
I love it.
Like, man, I wish you guys could see my face. This is a podcast. You can't see my face. But I was like, wow. But so it's funny because when I got to that wall, I was like, no, there's no way. There's got to be some other way. And I got about a third or halfway up, and there's a cutscene that happens. There's like one or two cutscenes I think that happen there, and I was like, oh, good, a cutscene. They're gonna just warp me to the top. Okay, excellent. No, when that cutscene ended, I was in the exact same place. I was very disappointed and scared. That is a very tough climb, though, for sure. So this is a mountain climbing game, undoubtedly, but I think you've kind of alluded to it a little bit. There's also like two other major components to this game that are not really noticeable, or maybe we don't talk about them yet. I'm sure we will talk about them more now that the game is out, but things that I didn't expect. So the first thing I think is that it's kind of like an adventure game. It's like a little bit like Tomb Raider in there, where there's lots of stuff on the mountain. It's not just a mountain. When I started this game, I thought, okay, it's gonna just be physics kind of thing, tough dexterity practice, and I'll just get my way up the mountain. But then there's all sorts of stuff that's hidden in the mountain. There's the troglodyte culture, which you spend a lot of time on, all the caves. You talk about the people who live there. So there's a lot of stuff to find, and I think that part was really satisfying, and the way that it was spaced out I felt was perfect. But something that's really tricky about this game is the supplies. So we haven't mentioned that very much, but you have to have food and water, and heat comes into play near the end of the game. And I noticed one of the lowest points when I was playing this game was, I don't know to where to describe where it was. It was before the goat cave. I'm sure you know where that's at. And I don't want to spoil anything for people, but there's a cave with a goat in it. And I was going to go to that cave, but then I saw something over to the other side, and I thought, well, this is interesting. I really like what I've seen so far. I'm going to go check this out first. And I went down there. It was a very tough climb. Got in there, did the thing. Again, no spoilers. But I noticed that it took me a long time. And by the time I was coming back from that secret area, I was very low on supplies. I had almost nothing left. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm not used to having the choice in game to decide, do I search for this thing or do I not because of supplies? That's almost never a problem that I have. Usually we search everything. We search every corner, check everything, rinse the whole place, and then we move on. And that wasn't really always possible. So I guess how did you find that balance, or did you intend that balance of the supplies specifically? Because I feel like that's really a constraint in how much exploration I did. Was I just being too cautious? Is there really that constraint? How did you find that balance of supplies?
It's a lot of iteration, but indeed it was the intention was to create that choice. You are climbing and you look at the wall and you can take this quite easy route to the next platform, but on the left there is a cave, and maybe in the cave there is food, and you need food, and then on the right there is a waterfall and you need water, so you could fill your bottle there. So it creates these choices all the time, and I think it was interesting. And also I see it a little bit like in a Resident Evil game or a Tomb Raider actually. You could go explore some area, but then you encounter some zombies, so basically you spend some munitions to shoot the zombies, and then you find maybe something, but you could spend more than you find and come back to the place you were initially with less. So that's part of the survival experience, and we tried to balance it correctly. But from the story you told, for me, it's pretty much what we wanted to create. The thing is to make you feel the tension without punishing too much. So in the game, even if you are thirsty, then you go to critical thirst and you start to see the character is going badly, but you can still play. And then if you are really in a too critical state, you pass out, but you don't die yet. You're going to pass out, time is going to be spent, and then you wake up and you're like, I'm super thirsty, I'm going to die. But you still have quite a long time to react and to find a solution. And eventually that's the whole story. That's your story. That's not the cutscenes. That's not the scenario we wrote. that's your ascent, and I love that.
Okay, I have to ask because what you just described was exactly my experience when I was coming back and going to the goat cave because I figured goats have milk. I can probably get some food or cheese or milk or whatever. So that was where I was going to. Ran out of food. And then I hit that, I'm hungry. And I like passed out and I was dangling from the rope and I spun around and for a while and I woke up and I was in terrible shape and I had nothing left, nothing at all left. And I'm like, oh my God. I didn't get to that next, the meter still had a little bit left. I climbed up and like the last second, I grabbed that goat and I just sucked it dry, right? But like, I need to ask, what would have happened if I hadn't gotten that goat milk? What happens after that critical thirst or hunger? Are you dead, or like what happens?
I would have personally came to your house and delivered some, good old pizza or something like that. No, yeah, of course, at one point you die and you can reload your save point. But, I mean, that's the magic. I can't explain. What happened to you is exactly what I wanted. And for a minority, it's going to be probably a death or two. But then that's part of a video game. That's the rule.
Very true. Very true. Okay, so getting back to the troglodyte culture, the civilization that's inside the mountain, there's a lot to discover. Now, I was really interested in this stuff. I'm not usually the kind of person that reads all the journals and collects all the things, but in this particular game, I felt like it was really compelling because it was a good balance to me of sheer gameplay of like hand over hand, climbing up the rock, and that's very grueling and rewarding when you get to the top, and it's also tough. But then like you'd have a minute where you're like, oh, I'm gonna just see how these people lived, and just kind of find those little hidden nooks and crannies. How much is there to find? Is it possible to see all of the things in one run? Or are there some super secret things that you would have to like intentionally go? Now, the reason I ask is because it's very difficult in this game to just jump around and do things like that. Like you're climbing, you're committed to the route. You can't just like quickly. I mean, I guess you could reload a save, I guess, but it's very hard to just check over here, check over there, go back and check again. Things that we would normally do in other games. And so, how much of this are you hoping that people will find, and how many of these things do you think they'll never find? Or how did you balance the thought that maybe some of these things people just won't see?
The design for it is that we intentionally made a lot of things that we know people will never find, and it's not going to be the same thing for everybody. Like it's normal if you play the game once and see 60%, because we want players to have the choice and to feel, okay, am I going there or there, and we don't want to have too much. Backtracking, so it's fine if you see only a little bit of the mountain. But I also have seen people who want to explore everything on the first run. You could do that for sure. It's challenging, but I've seen people do it, and so the first 15 hours walkthrough turns into 23, 24 hours. But they like it, so I'm happy for them. And the thing that nobody's going to find, I don't think it exists anymore in video games, but there is one tricky thing that's there.
So there's at
a
least
couple of secrets here.
Okay, so one big secret maybe people can look for. Okay, interesting. So that was great. So we've got a mountain climbing game. That's obvious. We just talked about the adventure / Tomb Raider / Resident Evil thing, which I think is not very apparent, but it's very strong. And I think it makes the experience much richer. But there's also one more part to this game that I think I wasn't expecting, and I'm not sure that anybody was expecting, was that it ends up being a very powerful and insightful character portrait of Ava, the main character. I was not prepared for how much I would invest in her and how much I would sympathize. I mean, we're different people, 100%. I'm nothing like Ava at all. I don't see myself in her even a bit. But I think what we saw was very illustrative and clear, and if not personally relatable, I think relatable on a human sense, and seeing how she's kind of a broken person in terms of relationships and her feeling towards the modern world, but then also she's like an achiever and she has a dream. I was not ready for that, and I have to wonder, when you started out to make Cairn, did you have that in mind, or was Ava's character, the depth of that character, something that grew along the way? Like, how did that come about?
No, we had precisely that in mind, and so we worked with Mathieu Bablé, the French comic book artist and also writer with that on that story and that character. So it's exactly what we wanted to create, but also I think like some people can find her a bit unsympathetic at the beginning or a bit rough. But when you go through the adventure and when you start living what she's living and experience the climbing and experience the sacrifices and everything, then at the end you connect. And I agree, we are not like her. I'm not like her, you're not like her. Quite a few people are like her. But at the end of the game you can relate and you can understand a little and you can be fascinated. And that's where it all started. It's fascination for those crazy people who are doing that, but they're also incredible. So, yep.
Very true. Very true. So leading into that, now I don't want to spoil anything for people. Most people who are going to listen to this podcast probably have not finished the game yet, so I don't want to ruin anything. But we have to talk about the ending for just a moment. Okay, so played your game. I loved your game. I don't know if I've said that yet. I loved it. It was amazing. Probably one of the best things I've ever played in my life, and I'm not exaggerating. I've been playing games for like 45 years, and I feel like it's like you said, this is one that's going to stick with me forever. So you succeeded in that respect for sure. And I think a big part of that was how it finished. As I was climbing the mountain, I was like, boy, I'm pretty low on supplies, and I don't know. There's no one here. There's no helicopter at the top to pick me up, and where am I going to go from here? What's going to happen? And it was feeling kind of grim. Again, not to spoil anything, but something pretty amazing happens. But in the moment before that, the voice actor did an incredible job right there. I mean, the voice actor was good all the way through. Very good. But at that part, when you're at the top, and what happens at the top and the voice actor doing the voice acting, like, it was so powerful. Like, I literally, like, I kind of cried. I mean, I honestly, I don't like to cry. I'm a tough guy, whatever. But I cried a little bit because I could really relate. I felt like I've just been through 15 hours of grueling mountain climbing, and it was a pretty hard game. And then you see Ava going through what she goes, and then the things that happen at the top, I was just like, oh my God, that really connected. And I don't think that people who just YouTube it will get the same sense. I think you have to kind of go through that suffering in order to get that same release at the end. But when the game wraps up, how did you, without spoiling, how did you land on that, or how did you come up with that? Because in a million years, I never could have guessed what happens. And so where did that come from, or how did you guys decide on that?
Well, I really don't want to spoil anything, but we know we wanted a strong ending for sure, and we worked a lot on that ending. It's really a lot of work to get it right. But when we got it, I cried 20, 30 times, I think. Even when I replayed it, watching playtesters. So it's not, I mean, it's not designed to be like that, but we wanted something powerful and memorable, and we worked the ideas, we worked the direction, the execution, and it was very stressful because we didn't get it until I think the last 3 months.
Wow. Okay.
So for a long time it was, are we going to be able to make it work? And it was broken and broken and broken. And eventually when it started to be a bit smooth, wow. I was very relieved.
I have to wonder, again, without spoiling, did you have other endings in mind, like completely different endings?
There are other endings.
There are other endings? Okay, I was not aware of that.
There is a choice at one point.
Oh, that's true. I know the choice you're talking about.
So there is an ending there.
I didn't see that one because I'm like, no way. I'm not going to take that one. But did you always have that kind of vision in mind, or was there like other options for like the final top of the mountain ending? Did you have other things?
Nah, it's a game that, like, all our games are not black or white. There is always a bit of in between, and we try not to tell players what to think, but we try more to ask questions. It's the same in Fury and Haven. But we wanted that ending, and we wanted that choice at one point. to make you choose actually. Okay, where do you stand? And if you don't want, you have the choice, and you can at least think about it. But yeah, we wanted that ending, and I think it goes with the whole thing. Why do you climb, and not giving an absolute answer.
It's incredible. I mean, I didn't know what it was going to be. I was really wondering, and I think it's incredible. It really landed for me very successfully, and I talked to my reviewer who finished the game as well, and he thought it was incredible. I mean, I think everybody I've talked to was like, yeah, I don't know what that ending was going to be, but when I got there, that was the perfect ending, and it was just good. I mean, amazing. I don't have any other super big questions, but I do kind of want to talk about, so I reached the top of Mount Cami. Obviously, your team has reached the top of Mount Cami in the sense that the game is now done. It's shipped. It's out. I'm sure that was you said like a 4-year journey for you. You've climbed other mountains before. Squids, which I love. Haven, Fury. You've done some mountain climbing in your past. So I wonder, with that trajectory, all your games are pretty different. You know, going from Squids to the boss rush to the romantic story to now this mountain climbing solitary story. Was there any... What is the through line for that for your studio? What is the linkage between all of these things? If you had to say the Game Bakers is about this, or this is something that you can see in all of our games, is there anything like that?
If we look at Fury and Haven and Cairn, of course there is the Freedom trilogy, but if we look at all our games, for sure there is at least 2 things that I can think of. One is we try to put as much of ourselves in the game so that it feels authentic and craftsmanship in a way. You know, a lot of details, a lot of soul, things that probably wouldn't make sense for a business guy in video games because you spend a lot of money doing this little thing that is not the key selling point. So we do that because the reason is that we are self-funded and self-published. So Audrey and I, who are the boss of the studio, decide to put the money on little details that nobody is supposed to care about, but I think eventually a lot of players care about. So that's one thing. And the second thing is, now that you say that, and I realize, there's probably in the game design approach a lot of inspiration from sports. So Squids was pool. Fury was martial arts and tennis, which I've practiced a lot in my life. Haven was rollerblading, skiing, which I also practiced a lot, and of course Cairn is a little more obvious, but it's always a good inspiration to have action verbs who are like sports movement. It's useful to base that a game mechanic on that, because you know it's going to work eventually in a video game. It's easier than subtle, intellectual things that we still add in the games, but not for the core gameplay.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess I didn't think of that, but I think that's really right. Like, you guys are making sports games this whole time. Huh, who knew? Sports games in disguise. Interesting.
Exactly.
All right, Emeric, thank you so much for your time. I really have enjoyed this chat, and I really enjoyed the opportunity to talk with you, especially after playing this game, which really did mean a lot to me. I really enjoyed my time with it so much. And I look forward to sharing those thoughts when this podcast goes up and in our review and stuff like that. So big congratulations to your entire team. Congratulations to you personally. Thank you so much for all of your hard work. This is something that I'm never going to forget. I don't think I will ever forget this game. So I think in that way, it's really, your work has really paid off. So thank you again for joining us. Everyone listening, this has been Emeric Thoa, creative director of the Game Bakers. Cairn is out now on basically all platforms, I think. Every platform?
No, PC and PS5.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. Okay, PC and PS5?
Yeah, PC and PS5 for now.
For now, and possibly other platforms in the future?
Yes, absolutely, hopefully.
All right, Emeric, thank you so much.
Thank you a lot. It was great to talk to you.
All right. Thank you again to Emeric Thoa for that interview. Really appreciate your time, and big congratulations to him and also the team for the launch of Cairn. Now, the review that I promised you at the beginning of the show. So we've talked about it quite a bit. There's a lot of this game that I don't want to spoil especially. But again, just to recap, Cairn is the third-person mountain climbing game, which has more to it than just mountain climbing. It took me altogether about 15 hours. I fell about 200 times. And I did roll credits before the game launched. So I had the pre-release experience. God, what do you even say about a game like this? It's really hard to say. The mechanics, I think, are great. It really does approach mountain climbing in a way that I have not seen done in any other game of this kind. And strangely, there have been a few mountain climbing games recently. It's been kind of a popular sub genre recently. But it's not, I almost feel like it's not even really about that. I mean, it is about that, but it's not about that because, as I mentioned a little bit in that interview, it was really also kind of an adventure game, which was really, really surprising to me. And it also even more surprising was the time that we spend with Ava, the main character. In that sense, it's like those three things done at the same time, and each of those builds on the other. I think every leg of that stool helps support the overall experience, and I think it would be lesser without any one of those pieces. Let's talk about the mechanics for a second. I think the mechanics are really good. I think the individual control of each limb is unique, and it does feel good in general. Now, I definitely needed all of the assistance. I turned on the visual feedback, and I turned on the time rewind. Visual feedback is when you get a quote-unquote good grip, a little white square appears around your hand or foot to let you know, yeah, this is a pretty solid grip. Without that feedback, I wouldn't really know if my grip was good or not. I don't think there's enough feedback there. I'm a pretty, I don't know, facts-oriented kind of guy. When I play a game like this, I really want to know exactly how much stamina do I have, exactly how much strength do I have, exactly, how much time do I have before my hand slips or whatever. And this game doesn't really do that. Like, they don't really play it that way, which I think is fine. That's a legit way to go. But you do fall a lot, and the game is really difficult. And so I think the physicality of being on a mountain, and, quick side note, like I mentioned earlier, I have done some rock climbing, not much, because I'm scared. But it's tough. It's really hard. It's grueling. You feel things on the mountain, and there's a lot of that feeling you just don't get in a game. And so in my mind, the way to compensate for that is having enough information. And I don't mind having it be optional. Maybe people want the purest experience so they can turn off all the meters and all the numbers and just look at the screen and look at Ava's, the main character's feedback. But for me, I want more stuff. So I felt like the stamina system was a little bit too opaque for me. I felt like the climbing mechanics were also a little bit too opaque. Without the visual feedback, I wouldn't know the difference between a good handhold and a bad handhold. And sometimes that is the difference between falling and not falling. So I felt like I needed all the assistance the game could give me. And even with everything turned on, it was still an incredibly difficult experience. It's hard and slow to get anywhere. You're fighting for every inch of the climb. And so that's a thing that you have to contend with. It's really tough. I think in some ways it's kind of analogous to a game that came out recently, Baby Steps, in that nothing in the game is easy. You have to really master the physics. You have to really think about where you're going. You can't just jump around and do things. So it does ask something of the player that I think is quite different than what we're used to. So in that respect, I think it stands out. I don't think it was entirely successful because I do think there were some times when I just felt like I was in a good position and my stamina wore out with no warning, or at least not enough warning for me. And so I did fall a couple times. There's definitely some sections that are tougher than others. As we covered in the interview, there's different routes you can take. Certain parts you can, that are optional. You can choose to do these or not. And also there was a few times when I felt like things would just get really wonky all of a sudden. I would never want to play Iron Man mode in this game because I don't think it's reliable enough. It's reliable 90% of the time, but then 10% of the time something goofy and unexpected would happen. And I'd be fall or something, and I'd be really, oh man, I can't believe that happened. So that's a thing. I would like to see a little bit more specificity, a little bit more granularity, but I can see how that is in contrast to the vision that the game makers were after. And I think them adding the accessibility options that they did really did make the difference for me. As I said in that interview, I don't think I would have gotten through this game if it wasn't for the time rewind and for the grip indicator. I just don't. I think it would have been too frustrating. And I'm not sure that it would have hung in there. So I'm glad that they did that. And I wouldn't mind a few other options also, just to make it a little bit more playable. I think a lot of people are going to bounce off of this game. But, it was like Emeric said, this game isn't for everyone. Not everybody is going to enjoy this game. And I think that's absolutely true. Even though I really do enjoy this game, I think it's pretty monumental. It's not something I would just recommend willy-nilly. I would have to really know that person. I would have to know what they liked, what they didn't like, and I'd have to, consider how good of friends we were. Friendship might be tested if I recommend this one. But to the right kind of person, I think it's going to be pretty amazing. So I think the climbing is really unique, and I think it's good. I'm not trying to slag it or anything. I think I have some quibbles with it, but I think overall it is quite compelling. and feels very satisfying when you do something. And, Emeric mentioned that they plotted out routes, but then people would always try to do their own route. And that was true for me as well. Like, I mean, some places were pretty obvious they wanted you to go that way, but there was a few times when I'm like, well, I've got enough pitons, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, in my backpack, and I see a place and I don't see another way to go. I'm just going to go for it. I mean, at one part of the game, I was crossing a bridge and there was a big statue underneath the bridge, but it was like under an overhang. And I'm like, how the hell do I get down there? I don't understand. And so I just tried screwing around a little bit. I would crawl over and try to, climb down under the overhang. And at one point I'm like, fuck it. I just put in a piton or a python and rappelled down, and I kind of swung to get like into that area, and I made it. And I was like, oh my God, I made it. I can't believe I did. I don't even know if that's how you're supposed to get down here, but like it totally worked. And like, it was like a real thrill. So I think there's definitely some mechanical thrills to be had for that, for sure. Talking about the other aspects of the game, I think the adventure section is a big surprise. I was really surprised at how much adventure elements there are in here, how much it does feel like a Tomb Raider game. Like, feels like you're finding this disappeared civilization, you're finding relics, you're finding rooms, artifacts, ruins, notes left behind. It's pretty compelling stuff. And I'm not like, I'm not a guy that reads every notebook entry. I don't listen to the audio logs, but in this game, I did feel like they were spaced apart. They were all pretty significant. They all helped paint the picture. They weren't like overly done. A lot of that too is just environmental storytelling, where you see a scene, you see what people left behind, or you find the people themselves, you find their dead bodies sometimes, and you just see this stuff, and it's just really great. And I don't want to spoil anything, but you were not alone on the mountain, which I think even saying that in itself is a little bit of a spoiler. So I'm not going to say anything else, but you're not alone on the mountain. And so when you have those interactions, they're really surprising and they're really compelling, and they really lean into those interactions very well. And I'm trying really hard not to spoil anything. I'm sorry. But like, that was a really compelling part also, where I just felt like, wow, I feel like this game has so many more elements to it than I was expecting. Not like I was expecting it to be super shallow, but I was here for like mountain climbing. I figured that was what it was going to be about, but there's way more to it than that. And I think unraveling the culture that lived on this mountain and how it influences the rest of the area, how it integrates to the surrounding areas, was really fascinating, really compelling, like just really, really masterfully done. There weren't too much, there weren't too many instances. There weren't not enough instances. I felt like it was just right. And every time I needed a mental break, or every time I needed to get off a cliff face or something, there was something nearby or something to shoot for. And whenever I did those things, almost always I felt like they were worthwhile in some way or another. Maybe I got a reward. Maybe I learned something that was pretty interesting. Maybe I just got some more water. And it just was really worthwhile. So I think the adventure part is really well done. I loved the adventure aspects of it. It just enriched the entire thing so much. And then finally, the last leg is, as we discussed, was the character development. It was super, super compelling. Ava, the main character, she just feels like a real person. She feels broken and she feels unbalanced, but she also feels fully formed, and she feels complete, and she feels like real in many ways that I just don't find in other games. And you had to go on this journey. Like, if you just watch the cutscenes, it wouldn't hit the same. Kind of like the same thing with the ending. Like, again, the ending, fucking tremendous ending. So emotional, literally crying, like tears, and just feeling everything that happens at the end. The voice actor, like, an amazing job. The voice actor fucking leans into that shit so hard. And it's just like impossible not to feel the emotion that actor is putting out. And that in combination with the last 15 hours of gameplay, of climbing up the mountain, every inch that you fought for, every time you went for the hard decision, every time you tried to get somewhere and you made it. I mean, it just all came together. Everything the game bakers try to do here, I feel almost all of it just came off like flawlessly, which is really an achievement. It just really came together in a way that was just so memorable. I felt like I was climbing that mountain, like I was suffering right along Ava. I almost wanted to put some tape on my fingers, because I'm like, man, I surely have blisters after all the climbing I just did. This is really tough. It just was so amazing to go through this very carefully curated, very measured experience that just really hit me unlike anything else that I can think of in recent years. Like, I just was so invested in the physical struggle of like actually holding the controller and climbing up these incredibly difficult, these steep inclines, and also just thinking about who Ava was and how she grows and changes, who she meets, who she talks to. And then just spending time on this mountain, which was like really a pretty amazing environment. Mount Kami is pretty fucking cool. Just the way that it looks and the way that it articulates with all its secrets and pockets and nooks and crannies and everything. So everything here has just been just really fabulous. I had a wonderful time. There's just so much to say and do and feel and think, and it just really kind of blew me away. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be on my top 10 list at the end of the year for sure. Like, it's a lock. And I feel like this is just a real achievement. It's a real achievement. I really want to extend my heartfelt congratulations to the team. I think they've really done something fucking special here. And again, it's not going to be for everybody. I imagine that a lot of people will be put off by the difficulty or by how grueling it can be. You know, sometimes the game just does not give you an inch. You know, I can think of many times when I went to try to look for a secret. I'll see a secret at the end of a really difficult to climb section, and I'll think, you know, God, is there going to be a way out of here? Can I get out of here? Am I going to be wasting all my resources if I go do this thing? I mean, I don't know. So I felt the tension. I felt the triumph. I felt like going through this journey in a way that just landed. It just fucking landed so hard. I just really enjoyed every aspect of it, every minute of it. And again, when you get to the end of that journey, what a finish. And it just was a perfect encapsulation of everything that had been leading up to that moment, physically, with Ava, in terms of the character, spiritually, everything about it, just fucking fantastic. I love this game so much. Yeah. So I guess that's it. I feel like I'm blathering. I feel like I need to keep more praise on it, but I don't know what to say other than stuff I've already said, and I don't want to spoil anything. So let me just end with a score. Final So Video Games official score, 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10. I would give it an 11 if that made sense, but mathematically the numbers don't math. So I'm going to have to settle for a 10 out of 10. Folks, I think this is as perfect an experience as one could possibly hope to produce. It doesn't mean the game itself is perfect. It doesn't mean it's flawless, but it means it just reached for something beyond what other games reach for. It achieved a lot more than other games have achieved. It had a vision, it had a strength, it had a voice. It just went places confidently, assuredly, and correctly. And it did, I mean, as far as I can tell, it did everything it meant to do, and it really got there in a way that I think very few people could have pulled off. So 10 out of 10, I just don't think you could do better than this. This is going to be absolutely a high watermark for the year for me. And that's the best I can do. That's the best I can do. Top marks. And y'all know I don't give out 10s very often. I think I hand them out on an average of like once every 5 years or so. So here's my one for this year, and I guess you're not going to get another one for another 4 years. So congratulations to Cairn. Congratulations to the Game Bakers. And if you listen this far, thank you very much for listening to the So Video Games podcast. This is my full review. And I don't know. I'm tired now. I feel like I've gone on another emotional journey. I got to get out of here. Thank you all for listening. I'll see you next week.